Hello, my name is Christina Gooch, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about George Washington's home, Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon, the estate, is about 10 miles south of Washington, D.C. on the Virginia banks of the Potomac River. It's around 500 acres for the whole estate. It includes farms, gardens, outbuildings, and of course, the original mansion house. The theme is, as you would expect, George Washington's life. It really does a good job of showing, by what he built, showing you what he valued, which was, as you would think, peace, prosperity, innovations, the chance for Americans to live freely in this really beautiful land. The greenhouse especially is pretty interesting because it shows how much he valued innovation. There's always space for creativity, for experimentation, for finding out what new plants grew well in the Virginia soil. The history of the estate Mount Vernon before George Washington even got it is pretty interesting. Originally it belonged to his father when it was known as the Little Hunting Creek Plantation, and George would have spent some of his childhood there, though not all of it. When George Washington's father died, the estate went to his older half-brother, Lawrence. When Lawrence died, the estate went to Lawrence's wife, but George and his wife and her children rented it from her until she died, and George became the owner outright. Sometime during all of this, Lawrence renamed the estate Mount Vernon after his actual British naval officer, Admiral Edward Vernon, who was his commander in the War of Jenkins' Ear, which is a fun little war. The value today in preserving Mount Vernon is showing really the legacy of one of America's greatest sons. George Washington is probably the most beloved American historical figure for many reasons, and so it's important to remember his legacy, what he did for the country, and to see just little things about his life also. And then from a practical standpoint, you can see how both the wealthiest people in Virginia lived. You can also see how the poorest, because they have preserved the slave quarters on the plantation, as well as the more showy things. If someone were to visit Mount Vernon, as I did as a small child a couple times, you can see really make lasting memories and connections that you can connect. When you read about Mount Vernon, you can think, oh, I've been there, and it'll help information stick in a child's mind, but it also just really gives you a sense of connection to your own past. Just walking in the footsteps of history like that is really, really interesting to know that when you're walking through a dining room at Mount Vernon, the names of the people who watched there before you is astonishing. And all of America's national monuments should be preserved, but this is probably one of the best and definitely one of my favorites. Thank you. Fun facts about Mount Vernon include the siding, which looks like stone, is actually painted pine, with sand thrown on it to mimic the texture of sandstone. Another interesting tidbit about the house is that there were so many renovations made, one on top of the other, that sometimes the overlaps preserves original elements of the house for historians to study. There are, for instance, brand new roof tiles with the fresh paint still on them in crawl spaces in the middle of the house. Another interesting fact is that the veranda, or massive porch on the back side of the house, was a brand new architectural innovation that George Washington himself insisted on to enjoy the view of the Potomac River.